welcome to my channel. Today I have brought my first lesson, which is on what is computer and the components of the computer. Before starting, subscribe to my channel, like, share and comment below how was my video. So let's begin. If you work with computer, you have likely heard terms like RAM, processor and hard drive mentioned by tech support or the other who are more interested in what goes inside of your computer case. If you have always wondered what the various components of your computer are for, but I have never really had time to look into this, then this video is just for you. While each one of these components is complex enough to spend lifetime learning about, but I am gonna give a very broad and general overview. A typical desktop computer comes down to 7 essential parts: case, power supply, motherboard, CPU, RAM, hard drive and graphics card. These are the fundamental part of any desktop computer. It may seem daunting at first, so let's separate them into two categories: simple one and the more complex one. For starters, let's look at the case. The case is nothing more than a big hunk of plastic box that houses everything else. Some of them has more or less physical space. Some of them has different parts where you can put a screw or this or that. But at the end of the day, all the case really close is provide a nice enclosed system for everything else. Next up, and the most simple one, power supply. Power supply, it is the part of your computer that almost and always located on the bottom. Is the part that plugs into the wall and provide all the other parts with the electricity needed to their thing. You can think of its extremely advanced AC adapter. Last of the simple, motherboard. The motherboard is the wide and flat circuit board that all of the other components plug into its part. That lets of these components send electrical current composing data between each other. Well, not particularly expensive. The motherboard is the most important component. Without it, you would have no way to put anything else. That's it for the simple components. Now let's move on the more complex part, the one that deals with data. The 4 main components to keep in mind here are named CPU, graphics card, hard drive, RAM. They are known as the more complex one. Okay, now first thing I'm going to establish some terminology. Keep in mind that CPU is a central processing unit, as sometimes as processor. RAM as random access memory, as sometimes memory too. Hard drive as disk drive, and it's known as storage too. And graphics card is GPU, as graphical processing unit. So let's start with CPU. The CPU is where our computer does things. It is not really capable of storing very much data at all, but it is very good at doing things with data. Quickly reading, it's arranging and doing the type of quick and massive calculation needed to run your programs. That's where most of your programs are essentially run. It's often referred as the brain of the computer. I personally don't like the description because really your entire computer is just a brain. It is just the center part of your computer is brain. Basically, that effort in your computer goes through your CPU at some point and mouse and more and more and more. Now let's talk about RAM. RAM and hard drive at the same time because they have a very unique relationship, which is probably why some people often confuse. Your hard drive is where all of your data is stored. When your computer tells you are running low on space, it's because your hard drive is almost full. All of the data that make up your videos, documents, projects and 3D worlds and more. all are all stored here, while hardware can store a lot of data. They are relatively bad in accessing the data quickly. Everything is accessed through a tiny little wire here, and because the most of hard drive are made up of a spinning disk, your hard drive isn't going to be able to constantly give your CPU the information it needs to run certain programs. That's why the RAM comes in. RAM is another form of storage. It stores same kind of data as your hard drive, but RAM sacrifices storage. Storage space for near instant accessibility. Unlike your hard drive, which sends all of its data through a tiny little thing, wire, and your RAM is arranged in this long fancy stick that inserts your motherboard. Think about a storage unit. If you have a massive warehouse with only a thin doorway, it's going to be difficult to get in and find what you really want. You need to get out of its tiny little doorway. It's a kind of separate all over the place. You will have to go through a tiny door. But if you have a long, wide storage warehouse that's got a big, massive garage composing an entire side of it, you want to be store as much thing as you want. Things are significantly easier to get to it. If your computer has thousands of gigabyte storage space, your RAM has 16 gigabytes worth RAM. Here you put the stuff you own but you aren't currently using, and this smaller one is where you put you are using and need to be able to get in and out quickly. When you run a program or a project, your CPU identifies what part of your data needed for the programs to run. It pulls them from hard drive and to RAM, and RAM is stick for quick accessibility. This is why when you start a new level of game, it just load and load. If you load anytime, you see it's loading and loading. The data that composes that level from your bulky hard drive into your RAM. From user perspective, just follow the rule. RAM. It is used to run intensive programs, while disk space allow you to have more installed, like pictures, documents, and more games and more things that you want. Referring whether it be picture, videos, models. And finally, we get to graphics card. With all of the calculation going on your computer to turn a bunch of numbers that basically come down to zero into a constantly updated three-dimensional world. That final and the most difficult and the most important step is to display that into your monitor. It's possible for your motherboard to do this one alone, but you may think that it's not gonna look good like this 3D dimensional world. It is very blur and it would look just very unconscious. It's certainly not gonna be able to do much. Your graphics card is essentially an entire computer in and of itself detected to the sole task of figuring what pixels need to light up on your screen, in what color and at what time. If you are playing a game that have very busy and high texture world, a lots of models and different angles and color, your CPU is a thing that creates world. It knows where the stuff is and does something to so with that's been stored in your RAM out of your hard drive, but it's graphics card that figures out what it's supposed to look like, and based on where you are standing in the world without getting too off topic here. Let's review again. Case is a big hunk of plastic, and power supply is the place where plugs into the wall, and motherboard is the place where all of your things is plugs, and RAM CPU is the place that does everything that is in your computer, and RAM is low in data storage but have a good accessing. Hard drive has more storage but has low accessing and graphics card is the place where your 3D dimensional world and videos are made and presented in your desktop computer. So this was our today's lesson. If you learned something from it, subscribe to my channel and comment below how was my video. See you in my next video. Thanks for watching.